Okay, can everyone hear me now? Okay, now we'll get started. Sorry about that. Okay, what we're trading today, guys, is the either futures or Forex, wherever it comes in. Okay. Um, for example, we might be trading the NASDAQ if it's moving. We might be trading the Russell if it's moving. Or we could go over and trade the Forex, which is the Euro dollar, the British pound dollar, or the USD JPY. Okay. Um, you can trade it using the underlying, which would be like the NASDAQ, or you could use the binary options, call spreads, or touch brackets. As traders, we have a lot of opportunities now. It's not just a one size fits all. When I first started, you just had to trade the underlying, you didn't have any other choice. But now we have lots of choices, okay? In this case, I actually believe that the NASDAQ is going to come down some. And the binary that I would have chosen would be the 6656. It would have about $40 of risk on it. But again, I believe it's going to come back to this ATR. Okay. Now, I tend to choose a binary option or call spread or a touch bracket if I am trading prior to the market opening. Okay. The market opening is very volatile, and I tend not to want to be in during that time, at least on the underlying instrument, which would be the NASDAQ futures. Okay. Um, After about 10 o'clock, then I will go into the actual futures once you have that opening volatility escape. Or if I see there's too much risk on the NASDAQ, I'll switch over and trade the binaries or the spreads or the touch brackets. So in this case, you see over here on the Russell, I do think this ATR here may hold, especially with this stochastics being overextended. Now, for the futures, I'm using a 45, a 12, and a 3-minute chart. Whereas when I go over to the Forex, I'm using a 60, a 30, and a 15-minute chart. Now, right now, even though the euro is moving down, I do want to see it break through these potential support areas on both the 30-minute and the 15-minute. Now, on the 15-minute, normally what you will see is you have this dot here. This tells me there's a support area here, and we should go back up and test this ATR. And that's exactly what I would be waiting on. Then over on the British pound dollar, this is where I think you're going to get your better setup, because over here you are actually testing this high right here. And so far they're rejecting it with about 13 minutes left in that one. Now I do think we'll get, you know, at least a retracement down here on the 15-minute. And I would want to see that before I actually entered the market. Then we have the USD JPY, and you can see it came down to the dot right here. This has made a low, and this is testing that low. This is what I would call a micro double bottom, and this should push it at least back to this ATR. So we're just going to kind of wait and see what happens here. The binary that you would have to have traded on the NASDAQ would have been the binary that expires at 10 a.m. this morning. And again, it did have about $40 of risk on it. And it's very important when I mark the line for the binary on my chart, I really like for it to be in between where it was and where the ATR is, okay? That's very important to me because, hey, it might not get all the way down to here, but if it gets there to this line, then you have made a profit. In this case, you've got about 15, I believe, in profit. You do not want to see them make this into a bullish bar. That would not be good for the trade. If I saw that, I would scratch it. Even though there's an hour and 11 minutes, you don't want that pullback right there. You really want to see the 66.56 area hold. That's where the ATR is over on the 60-minute chart. Let's go look at the British pound because this one is about to finish. I would really like to see a retracement on the 15-minute chart. Now, if you're trading a longer term view on this, then you could actually either trade the 60-minute chart, and in this case, you're going to run at least a 30 pip stop. You could trade a binary on the daily for that. You could trade call spread, or you could trade a touch bracket. You have about 8 minutes left for this one. If you're trading the 60-minute in isolation, then you're not looking at these 2 time frames over here. You're just entering off of the 60-minute. Again, I think you are going to have at least a 30 pip stop on this. They do have a touch bracket available at 29.62. So you would be risking basically about 63 to make 187. You could also, you have the option of doing an actual Forex binary. In this case, you would have to, for the 60-minute, you would be better off using a daily binary on that one. I believe they have one at 28.80. Only has about $20 of risk on it. You could do a call spread. And on the call spreads, They don't have any call spreads on the daily that would be beneficial. If you waited until like 9 a.m., they do have a 2900 area on the call spread. Let's go back and look at the NASDAQ. Now you really do not want that bullish bar here on the 3-minute chart. I'm just blowing it up some for you. Now there is a potential that it could come up here and test this moving average, and because it broke through the moving average, so it could come back and test that moving average. You do have, let's see, an hour and 6 minutes. I would prefer that it go ahead and go down to the ATR and break through that ATR. That would be my preference. If you are trading the British pound and you do believe that this is a double top formation that they're rejecting, you could actually enter it about here. And I'm going to change the color of that line to yellow. Nope, it's not going to show up. We'll go to this one. But the thing of it is, you're going to have to set your stop right above this one because they could come back and test that one. So in this case, I'm just going to put a dotted line to show you where I would be setting my stop. And it's going to have to be about here. Hello. Now, I would think that it would at least come down to here, and this is where you're not going to get a very conducive risk to reward, but it also has the potential because it may be a double top to even go lower. Okay. Personally, I would like to see it set up on the 15-minute. In other words, the 15-minute is confirming the 60-minute. Normally, in that case, what will happen is the stochastics will come back to 80. That would be my preferred entry on that. But again, if you're just using the 60-minute and you like double tops and double bottoms, then it's an entry. Okay. Nothing so far over on the USD JPY. I would like to see it come back to 109 before I even contemplated an entry there. Yeah, it is overbought on the British pound. Normally, though, you can time it a little bit better if you wait for that 15-minute to set up. But again, it kind of depends on your trading style and what you're using. You know, in this case, using the Forex, your stop is at 29.35. Using a touch bracket, your stop's going to be somewhere around 29.60. I think it's 62 actually, which would be about here. That's using a touch bracket. I like to have that touch bracket setting off a bit. And this is a great example. This would be your touch bracket. This would be the Forex, actual Forex symbol. Okay. But then you actually have the potential on the touch bracket side. Not that it will, but your first touch, well, the touch for the floor would be 2712, which would be down here. Now, this is what I actually like to see, because you're heavier on the profit side versus the risk side. And it also corresponds with this low that was previously put in over here. In fact, you're above it. Just something I would like to see personally. And the NASDAQ trade is doing okay. This was a binary at 66.56. I did not like this, but as you can see, it tried to test that moving average, and so far it's failed to really test it. Now, this is the good thing. You have this working in your favor, which is the 45-minute. Well, I think if you're trading, regardless of whether you're trading touch brackets or whether you're trading the Forex symbol, I think really it needs to be the prior high, okay, or the prior low. And in this case, you can see I'm not using this particular high or this particular low. Instead, I'm going back to this one because it was the highest, okay? And see, this is exactly what I was talking about. Do you see how it's going back to test this high right now? Because we were overextended. That's the reason I believe timing it with that 15-minute is better. Let's go and look at the euro. Don't really like that one. And so you can see the same concept over here on the E-mini Russell. Okay, you're getting to the point of being overextended here, and it's gone back to test this moving average. Now, will that moving average hold? Well, it actually looks like it might. It's important that this be a bearish bar, but do you see how you're getting overextended here on the stochastics? That's really kind of what you want to see. I do not want to see this low hold on the NASDAQ. I can easily, just scrape this trade for a very small profit on a binary versus losing the $40 on the binary. Let's go see if the... Now this one would be better if this was also overextended here, but this is what I was wanting to see. For example, on the British pound dollar would be this formation where you had the price testing this ATR. So to me, this would potentially be a better entry. The only thing I would want to see is that ATR to be tested. It may not test that because you've got a lot of resistance right now on the USD JPY, but I would prefer that this be tested with this scenario at the same time. This is what makes trading a waiting game. Now, if you were going to enter this one on the actual Forex symbol, I do think your stop would have to be about 109.10. So that's going to be like a 40 pip stop, which is not one I like to actually use. I would much prefer to go in on a binary on this because it's all about risk to me. Now, you could do a binary or you could do a touch bracket. So the touch bracket has a 109.50. That would be the closest. I'm going to put it on there. We'll just drag this one down. So you would have 109.50 as your ceiling, which is going to give you 50, 60, 70, $80 in risk. If you're going into, and let me make that dark red because that would be the touch bracket. If you were going into the actual underlying, you would have to be at least at 109.10. Okay. Now, could you zero that in more down here on the 15-minute chart? You could. I still think you're going to have to be at least at 109. If you're using the 15-minute chart, if you're using the 30, you're still going to be at 109.10. I would prefer for this to be overextended down here below 20. It may return to this area to test it again. Let's go back and look over here. With this stochastics being overextended right now, I think I would hold that for at least one more bar. Thanks, Dan. Unfortunately, I don't have a regular schedule on this right now. It's whenever it's convenient to do it. Let's go over to the euro again. Would really like to see a bearish bar here on the Russell. Now we have about 20 minutes until the market opens. Really do not want to be in this binary when the market opens. Even if you had to scratch this trade right now, you've covered the cost of your trade. That's about it. I do not like the holding through the market opening on those. And this one. Oops, not there. One of the reasons I don't like to hold during the market opening is they'll spike it. And literally that's what it is, just a spike. I'm really not interested in a short position right now on this. It may come back and test 1382. That wouldn't surprise me, but you have a stochastics here that's overextended. You have one over here that's overextended. Don't want to go against that. Now, if you have any questions, if you type them up, I'll be more than happy to answer it for you. I do not trade 5-minute binaries at this time of the morning because they expand the strike width. I generally do the 5-minute binaries up until 8 o'clock. But then it doubles. It goes on the euro dollar, it goes from 2 pips to 4 pips. On the USD JPY, it goes from 2 pips to 4 pips. And that means that you need at least, using out of the money binaries, you need about 10 to 12 pips of move. And a lot of times you don't get that much in a 5-minute period. That's a pretty big one to get. That's a pretty substantial double top if it holds. It has to hold though. Let me see if we do have the FOMC member Quarles speaking this morning. It's really the only thing that we have besides the G20 meetings. Let's see what the USD JPY is doing. have about 12 minutes until the market opens this morning. These lines simply tell me where the support and resistance are based on pivot highs and pivot lows. The British pound is having trouble moving. Now, to turn either of these stochastics, we do need a bearish bar on the USD JPY. We're going to have the market opening in about 7 minutes. And again, I don't like to be in at the market opening at all. It can actually screw up a really good trade. You can also see that 3 minute is now oversold. So is the 12 minute. Generally, that means they're going to at least spike it upwards at the market opening. We'll wait and see. As I said, I would already be out of the binary option. Even with the binary, I don't like to hold it through the market opening. Either it does what I want or it doesn't. I'll follow it through, but as I said earlier, I would not be in that one now. Minimum, I would have scratched it at break even. A break even trade is not held against you. It's break even, you covered the cost of your trade. Now, as long as this bar stays bearish, it has the potential to turn the stochastics down. Same thing over here on your 60 minute, has the potential to turn that down. We'll go over and watch the opening. It's in 4 minutes. When you're watching the stochastics, always watch the closing price. That's what makes the difference. I'm currently developing the indicators for TradingView. This stochastics does not have the smoothing algorithm in it yet, so you will get a lot of false signals on it. And that's my dog's opinion. And we have the market opening. We'll see what they'll do. It looks like they don't know what they want to do. You can actually see the effect of the closing price on this 3-minute stochastics. If you watch it, you can see as it ticks up, this ticks up as well. I would like to see it go back to this dot on the 45-minute and then have an entry generated off of that, but we'll have to wait and see. when this comes back to this red dot or the slow moving average, either one, if this turns up, which it should, then I would want to see trend divergence on that in order to enter. With recent volatility, it's been a little bit hard to get that. The volatility has created bigger stops. It looks like they're trying to reject that high. It's not quite there yet. If they're truly rejecting this high, then you're going to see a bearish bar develop down here. It's not there yet. And you want this to be a strong bearish bar, not a weak one. In order for me to go long, it will have to close above this 66.74.25 area. It's not there yet. We can go over and look at the Russell. I would not want to go into a market that's already overextended on 3 time frames. Those are not the best setups. I just did. Just got a doji over on your 3 minute, and it is this bar that will determine the next direction. If this turns into a bearish bar, then more likely than not, the next bar will be bearish. If it remains bullish, then the next bar should continue up. Again, I don't want to go into a market that is overbought. And I don't want to go into a market that I've got overhead resistance immediately above me. That would be a real no-no. What I'd like to see over on the 45-minute chart is a bearish bar develop. That would tell me that potential resistance area may hold. It would also cause the stochastics to start coming down, and that would give you the bearish divergence on the stochastics. It is not there yet. And the same thing on the Russell. You're overextended here, you're overextended here. Not a market I would want to go long on. I'd rather sit and wait for my setup versus just going into a market that's overextended. If I'm in a market and it's overextended, well, then I'm tightening stops or potentially taking profits but I'm definitely not entering a trade there. And of course, that's what makes trading hard too, is waiting on your setup. Now, if you were not overextended, you could have had an entry here. But with this being overextended, this is not an entry I would take. if you like the 20-minute binaries, you could potentially do one on this for a retracement back to this ATR. I think the risk is too much because it's trading at 66.89, and to go one strike out is about $40 in risk. Mainly due to the volatility right now. You may be able to get one better on the Russell. Yeah, on the Russell you could go out one strike for $35 versus the NASDAQ, which you're having to go out like 3 strikes. I don't go out 3 strikes. For a $35 risk on the US Tech 100, you'd have to go to 66.80, which is about here. Now you do have the trend divergence developing over here. You also have it on the 12-minute, so it should push it down some. Will it push it down far enough is going to be the issue on this one. The Russell's doing pretty good though. Now, anytime I trade the 20 minutes, I do use a order, and in this case, I have a $15 profit target. Because you're going short, you need to set your profit target lower. You really want it to come back to this ATR. And if it does, it will more than likely give you your profit target on the 20 minute. go over and see what the NASDAQ's doing. Well, the NASDAQ's doing pretty good too. It went below the 6680. I didn't do that one. I didn't like having to go out that far on it. You still have about 12 minutes on the 20-minute binary. Don't like the fact that that's overextended on the 3-minute. You really kind of need one more push down on the Russell to give you your target. You really want that to come back to that ATR if you're in that 20-minute binary. Got about 10 minutes left on this one. If you did the NASDAQ 20-minute, that had a higher risk on it. It was $40. And I would still set a $15 target on it. And a lot of times you'll never see the premium get to 15. It'll just pop down and hit you and take you out. I didn't like the risk on that one. It doesn't mean you won't get it. And I just didn't like the risk. You really don't want it to close above that fast moving average. You want it to hold, but in order for it to hold, then you need a bearish bar. We have about 5 minutes until this one completes. So I'm going to go grab a cup of coffee and I'll be back. You are immediately below your strike right now on the Russell. The strike price was 1458.9. You're at 1458.4. So as long as it stays there for the next 28 seconds, then you have made your profit. And you realize the full profit potential on that $15 target was not hit. I have to go down to a 1 minute, but I think you would have made it on the NASDAQ as well. Yeah, the expiration value on that was 66.75, so you made it on the NASDAQ as well. The 20-minute trades are quite quick. You only have 20 minutes for them. That was from prior to the U.S. market opening. And remember, this is where I said I expected it to reject at that red dot there. That's why I did not want to go long, because that is a resistance area, and they have not managed to break it. Now, does anybody have any questions this morning on the British pound? That was mainly from the 60-minute chart. So that one is still on. And the USD JPY is still valid as well. Again, you're seeing the testing of that ATR. I'm expecting it to come down to this blue dot at 108.65. Now, again, you could have traded that using a touch bracket, or you could have traded that using the underline, which is, of course, the USD JPY Forex symbol. I do still think that will come down. You see that we have resistance here at 109.01. This red dot here, it coincides with this ATR over here. On the British pound, I think it will come down to 28.67, possibly lower. This one, I just marked the price on the GBP US dollar. There was also one, a touch bracket. And this is an important thing if you're using these new touch brackets. I know a lot of people say, wow, it's going to stop you out. Well, that's, if you have ever traded Forex before, you're used to stops. So you always need to use the last true high or true low. And in that case, you would have been sitting off of this high. Okay. If you had used this high, or if you had used this high, then you got stopped out. And of course, your favorite thing to say is they're running stops. Well, no, your stop was too close to price. And notice that, this touch bracket was sitting way off. Same thing over here on the USD JPY. You're sitting really far off. So it trades just like a mini, but you do have a limited risk, and it allows you to use a bigger stop. And they all have weekly expirations. So I do have a website, and I offer a lot of training courses. You can visit the website at TradersHelpDesk.com. And I also have a blog. There's a link to it on the main site. let's see. So you can go to the blog. Well, that won't work. Let me do it another way. Okay, you can go to my blog at TradersHelpDesk.com and simply click on blog. You can also view the training courses, training packages, and trading indicators. I do recommend that you subscribe to the channel so whenever I go live, it's not a planned event. I just get up one morning and decide I want to go live, and I go live. If you subscribe to the channel on YouTube, there is a subscribe button. Then you will be notified whenever I go live. So I hope everyone has a wonderful day. I've been trading since about 3 o'clock this morning, so I'm going to go back to sleep for a little while. I hope everyone has a wonderful day. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it, and have a wonderful day.